Hi everyone. Just going to give it maybe another minute just to let people finally trickle in. I know no one often arrives bang on the hour, as it were, so we'll give you just another minute more. Yeah, see already a few more people are trickling in, so it's always a good idea. Okay, I think if we got a few things to go through, so if we have a start now. So hi everyone, welcome to this RTPI Thames Valley Young Planners RC Expert event, looking at LEPS and bounds. I'm Suzie. I am a senior planner at Bidwells based in the Milton Keynes office and a member of the Thames Valley Young Planners Committee. My co-host today is Amy Powell, who is a graduate planner at Edgars, and we want to welcome you to this event. Welcome. Just a quick housekeeping thing. We love to hear about what you think about these events, so make sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn and Twitter after the fact or even during, and we'd love to hear what you think, and so would our experts as well, so please do let us know. So just in terms of the quick structure of today's proceedings, so we've got two amazing speakers here with us. We are going to have presentations from our speakers, Sebastian and Hilary, who will kind of talk about their areas of expertise. And then afterwards, we will have the opportunity for a Q&A. There is a questions box on your right-hand panel. You can submit a question to us and we'll be able to keep track of them. We're going to attempt to have it so that you can unmute to ask your question. If that all fails, we'll ask it for you, but just be aware that that's kind of how we're looking to proceed with things. So I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to give a lovely introduction to both our speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Suzie. So the Oxford to Cambridge arc is a really exciting and prosperous region in the UK, which is set to grow in the coming decades. It's the intention that the region will compete with the world's leading centres of research and innovation and attract the highest calibre of businesses and institutions, further contributing to the UK's economic output. At the western end of the arc, the Thames Valley is ideally placed to further develop its economic base with its already established links with London, the South Coast ports, road, rail and aviation networks, its world-class universities and some of the fastest growing towns and cities in the UK. OXLEP and SEMLEP are the strategic leaders in driving investment in the region through their respective local industrial strategies. We welcome today Hilary Chipping, the Chief Executive of SEMLEP. She leads on setting the strategic economic priorities for the South Midlands area, including overseeing an incredibly generous £265 million programme of capital investment through the Local Growth Fund. And she works closely with the government, local authorities and partners to unlock the infrastructure, housing growth, delivering skills along the way to create high quality environments that allows everybody in the region to thrive. From OXLEP, we welcome Sebastian Johnson, the Head of Innovation. Sebastian has over 35 years of experience of economic development and knows firsthand what businesses need to thrive. At OXLEP, he leads the inward investment team to drive Oxfordshire's aim to internationalise the region and attracts the world's top businesses and institutions. Everyone at Thames Valley Planners would like to welcome and thank them both for taking part in the event today and taking the time to be with us. And I'd like to introduce Hilary to start speaking first. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Amy, and thank you very much indeed for inviting me to come to the event today. I mean, it's great to hear that there's a group of young planners because we absolutely need more young people to come into planning, and so great opportunity. Really looking forward to. I expect you'll have some very challenging questions for us. So are you okay for me to start the presentation now? So I've got some slides which I'm going to run through. So the plan is that I talk for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then my colleague Sebastian will speak, and then we'll wait for the questions. So again, I'm going to sort of focus on telling you a little bit about local enterprise partnerships. So I appreciate some of you will know more than others about a local enterprise partnership. Then I'm going to talk about how important the built environment is to businesses, and what we in SEMLEP do to work with our local authorities and planners and developers and others. And then I'm going to tell you about the ARC, which, as Amy said, is the really exciting project and programme for us at the moment in our area. So next slide, please. So this is just the overview of local enterprise partnerships. At the moment, there's 38 local enterprise partnerships. They're all run in slightly different ways, and some are larger than others. But the key focus is that they cover functional economic areas, and their focus is on driving sustainable economic growth. So I'll talk to you a bit about how we're structured in order to deliver that economic growth. Next slide, please. So this area, the South East Midlands Local Enterprise Partnership, and we are right at the centre of this Oxford to Cambridge arc, as you can see in the map there. So we cover Northamptonshire, which until recently was a two-tier local authority with a county and 7 districts. As of the 1st of April, it's 2 unitary authorities of North Northamptonshire and West Northamptonshire. And then the other 4 local authority areas that we cover are Bedford, Central Bedfordshire, Luton and Milton Keynes, and they're all already unitaries. So we're now, as of the 1st of April, we're quite a sort of neat 6 local authority area. We're quite big in LEP terms, population of around 1.7 million, and around 76,000 businesses, and most of those are small and medium-sized enterprises. So it's quite challenging to reach out to those businesses. We've got a GVA of around 50 billion a year, and 4 universities in our patch, and then across the whole of the arc there are 10 universities. So that universities play a really important role in terms of driving innovation. Next slide, please. So this is SEMLEP's role, but it's pretty similar to any local enterprise partnership, and it is in simple terms about facilitating and promoting long-term sustainable and inclusive economic growth. So we're quite a small organisation, and we've got a board of 20 people, 2/3 private sector. All the board members are volunteers. So we're very much about setting a strategic direction in the area, and around convening and enabling growth. So in terms of our direct intervention and securing inward investment, I know Sebastian's going to talk quite a lot about that from an OXLEP perspective. But what we also do a lot of is what we call our growing people function, which is around enhancing skills across the area. So we want to ensure that we have what we call an employer-led skills strategy, so that our young people and indeed our older people have the sorts of skills that they need in order to engage in the sectors that are important across our patch. And across the SEMLEP area, those sectors are very much around logistics because of where we are in the country. High performance technology, we have the Silverstone, home of the British Grand Prix, right in the centre of SEMLEP. Some emphasis around food and drink and manufacturing, and then quite a big cultural and creative sector. Next slide, please. In terms of the economic context of the area, we're innovative, as is true of all the whole of the Oxford to Cambridge arc, with these high-tech clusters. Particularly, we see ourselves as an area where ideas are developed and commercialised and can be tested. So we've got lots of fantastic assets around the patch, like Cranfield University. I've already mentioned Silverstone, which is the home of the Silverstone Tech Cluster. We have Millbrook Proving Ground as well. And just a few statistics here on the slide, and one that will probably be of interest to this audience is around our housing figures. So in 2019-2020, 4.4% of England's housing completions were focused in the SEMLEP area, and that compares with a population of about 3% compared with the national. So we've been delivering housing at a fast rate, certainly since 2005, when a sub-regional spatial strategy was developed for the Milton Keynes South Midlands growth area. We are noted for development for our startups. So nationally, around 1 in 29 businesses start in the SEMLEP area, and we've got a fast growing population and a high employment rate. I mean, clearly the experience of last year with the pandemic caused a number of issues, but there are already signs that we're moving out of that period of survival, and I'll say a little bit more about our economic recovery strategy in a moment. So next slide, please. Yeah, so we developed an economic recovery strategy throughout last year, as all LEPs did, and focusing on these sort of 3 stages of survive. So we were supporting businesses through our growth hub to help them cope with the severe economic shocks of last year. We're into stabilising businesses, and then we hope to from next year be back onto our growth trajectory, which is what this area is known for. And we brigaded our strategy around the 5 foundations of productivity: ideas, people, infrastructure, business environment, and place. So I think I thought you'd be interested to see the extent to which infrastructure, and particularly the focus on moving to zero carbon, and also the importance of having the right sort of places for people to live, and focusing on settlements of the future, the places that people will want to live and work moving forwards. Next slide, please. So this is the sort of crux of why is the built environment so important? Clearly the other aspects that I've talked about, the skills, the business support, are also important. But in order to retain that highly skilled workforce in the area, we found through our business survey that it's really important to offer this high quality environment, and that's the environment both in terms of the natural environment but also the cultural environment. People want to live and work in places where they feel that there is an environment that they're happy with, that they can meet like-minded people. It's very important to their businesses, to help their businesses grow. So I've just put a few statistics in the slide. Our business survey, the last one we carried out in 2019, we'll be doing another one later this year. But businesses that rated this area as a good area to do business, 61% of them said it was about the availability of utilities, 62% the road network, 64% the availability of suitable premises, and 67% attractive surroundings. So attractive surroundings don't just make it a nice place to live, they encourage businesses to come into the area, to stay here, and to grow. In the area, this area, we are known for having a high proportion of startup businesses, and it's really important to retain those businesses in our area. And one of the things that we've identified through our local industrial strategy is that there is a shortage of the sorts of commercial premises that will enable businesses to grow, scale up. So those sorts of medium-sized premises where maybe there's some office space, but there's also some engineering space and lab space. The sort of, if you're familiar with some of the innovation hubs, I'm sure Sebastian will talk about those from an Oxfordshire perspective. in the middle here in the South East Midlands, we could definitely do with more of those types of premises to encourage our businesses to stay in the area and to grow and to build on the foundations of innovation. Next slide, please. So what do we do as a local enterprise partnership? Well, we do work very closely with our local planning authorities. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, we've got quite a history in that this South East Midlands, it was one of the growth areas that was developed under the previous Labour government prior to 2010, and we had this sub-regional strategy, and we've continued to work very closely with our local planning authorities. We feel that one of the important roles that we have is actually identifying what are the barriers, what are the challenges to delivering infrastructure, and how can we help. So that is often funding, but it's not just funding. I mean, as you as planners will understand, the challenges of actually delivering developments. Once we have a very high level of planning consents across the SEMLEP area, but there are still many challenges around how do we enable developers to ensure that we've got the right level of, whether it's electricity supply, water, roads, schools, community facilities, all of those different aspects of infrastructure that require collaboration, different organisations to work together, and funding to come in at the right time. And in order to help those sort of debates, we have this organisation. I've put the acronym there. That stands for Private Developments Investment and Infrastructure Delivery Group. So this is a group of developers, both in the residential and the commercial sector, but we also bring in government agencies, so Homes England, Highways England, Network Rail, the Environment Agency. So everybody that has a focus on delivering sustainable developments. And we have a planners forum. So we have the heads of planning from our 6 local authorities all meet together regularly in order to so that we have an overview of what's happening in the planning environment across the whole of the SEMLEP area. We've developed an energy strategy. So one of the big barriers to development is having sufficient energy when new homes and commercial premises are planned, and we're also focusing on improving broadband across the whole patch. So if you move on to the next slide, please, I'll say a little bit about our local growth fund. As Amy mentioned at the beginning, we have this programme of 265 million, which has been we've been delivering that through our local authorities and private sector colleagues since 2015-16, and I just wanted to draw out how much of that programme is focused on what we call the place bit of what we did. You'll have seen at the beginning that we divide what we do into our growing businesses, growing people and growing places. And similarly with our £265 million programme, we look at it in that sort of way, and around 65%, or just over 170 million of that, is focused on the built environment, and whether it be roads to open up developments, or focus or colleges, or other sorts of premises. So if you just move on to the next slide, please, I'll give you a few specific examples. So I just picked out these 3 examples of the projects delivered through the Local Growth Fund, and the one on the top left is the Vulcan Ironworks. That's actually in Northampton, but it's a really good example of how this was an interesting old building in the cultural quarter of Northampton that had fallen into disrepair. With investment from SEMLEP, we are restoring it, and what it will be used for is to give small units to enable creative businesses to move into that ironworks building and hopefully to grow and then move on to other premises. So really important role in terms of helping businesses to stay in the area and to grow and to employ a skilled workforce within the area. At the bottom left, we've got an example of a road project, and that is the dualling it's the A421, but what's important about that, it was that it's a road that links the outskirts of Milton Keynes, which is next to the M1, where there are a number of big sheds such as John Lewis and Waitrose and others, and there was just a single carriageway stretch of road that went from those sheds onto the motorway, and it was also part of the strategic Oxford to Cambridge link. So SEMLEP put nearly £23 million into dualling that road, and that will then open up a large number of new homes and jobs in the area. And then the one on the right hand side, again, I think this is a really good example of investment, again, in units, which that's focused on encouraging engineering companies to move in, to start up, to grow, and then to move on to other premises. And that's located next to the link road between Milton Keynes and Bedford. So again, part of the connectivity across the arc and the opportunities for developments close. Once we start to improve that connectivity, then developers will move in, but sometimes it needs a bit of support from the public sector in order to enable that to happen. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So the ARC spatial framework, I'm sure as planners you will have been looking at this document. We've certainly, as LEPS across the ARC with our local authority colleagues, been waiting for some time for a statement from government about the spatial framework, and this was issued on the 18th of February. Generally, I think it's been really well welcomed because it's a document that focuses very much on the opportunities of, as it says on the slide, making this a brilliant place to live, work and travel for both the existing residents and future residents, and that's something that's very much at the heart of what the ARC is about. There's a big focus on the economy in the document and the environment, not so much of a focus on new homes, because I think that was perhaps those of you that sort of followed the progress of the ARC from a concept set out by the National Infrastructure Commission back in 2016, when there was a lot of emphasis on new homes and big pieces of infrastructure like East-West Rail and a possible expressway, which is no longer going ahead in its entirety. This document was absolutely focused on the environment and on economic growth. Next slide, please. Back in last October, the LEPS worked together with our ARC Universities group to publish an economic prospectus, and that really set out this shared vision for the ARC. So we want the ARC to be a global hub for innovation, home to exemplary models of green development, and it's about inspiring communities around the world, and I'm sure that Sebastian will talk more about how we aim to do that. If we move on to the next slide, please. And what this slide really shows is the importance of research and development in our patch. We have a very high proportion of institutions. I've already mentioned the 10 universities and the links that they make with our local businesses, and that's really something that stands out, and that's what makes this ARC area different to other parts of the country. And the capabilities that we have across the patch: advanced manufacturing, space, future mobility, aviation. And I'll say a little bit more about the themes that we set out in that economic prospectus. But I think what this diagram really shows is that what's important is the way that all of these different sectors connect together, and the digital and creative element actually runs through all of them, and that's what makes a difference. And that's why we feel that the ARC has such huge potential through joining up all of those sectors, the assets, the research facilities with our businesses. We can really create this thriving economy. Next slide, please. So in the economic prospectus, we set out these 5 particular themes around innovation that we said that we were committed across the ARC to developing those. So a focus on life sciences and creating an innovation network, sustainable aviation. So we have Cranfield, a digital research airport at the centre of the ARC, but we've also got Luton Airport, and forging that pathway towards zero carbon aviation by linking up the research that's already going on, particularly in Oxford and Cambridge and Cranfield. We believe that this area, the ARC, can be at the forefront of moving towards that net zero aviation goal that is so important at the moment. There's also a lot happening around space, and I expect Sebastian will be touching on that, because there's a lot happening in Oxfordshire, rather, linked to Westcott in Buckinghamshire. Future mobility, the move towards electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, again a lot happening in this area. And then zero carbon energy, with COP26 coming later this year, a huge focus on the importance of making that behavioural change and really meeting some of the aspirational targets that government has set around a zero carbon future. Just for those of you who like to know what the pictures are, that what we're looking at there is an organisation called Remote Applications in Challenging Environments, and that's based at Culham in Oxfordshire. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this really sort of sums up what we're trying to achieve in the ARC and what was set out in the economic prospectus. So there's the potential to double GVA to at least £200 billion per annum, as we set out in the document. You know, for every £1 invested in the ARC area, we can demonstrate that there will be a return of at least £4. So it's a good area to invest in. And what we really believe about the ARC is that we have this, that there is the potential here. You know, we need to work with the private sector and public sector working collaboratively. There's lots more to do. We're very much at the start of a process, but we believe that there is the potential to deliver this innovation-led sustainable economic growth, and that this area can be known to be the green ARC, where net zero carbon and environmental net gain go hand in hand with economic growth. And I think that's a really important point. So it's not, well, we can have the growth or we can improve the environment. What we really want to demonstrate through technical innovation is that the two can move hand in hand, and that there will be benefits to our local communities, both now and in the future, but also benefits to the whole of the UK and to the world. So this area has huge potential and huge benefits, and we're now working together, hopefully, to realise that potential. Thank you. I think that's the last, is that the last slide?
Thanks, Hilary. That is, I'd like to move over to Sebastian then. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hilary. That was brilliant. I'm going to talk as, if we can go on to the next slide. So I'm Head of Innovation and Inward Investment at the Oxfordshire Local Enterprise Partnership. I'm going to talk about particularly international investment, and run through what it is, why it's important, the vision and investment offer, and kind of thoughts on I think your role as planners in all of that, which is really important. So let's start with some definitions when we talk about international investment. Yeah, that's the right slide. Thanks, Susan. There are three kind of areas that we work closely with the Department for International Trade, the bit of government that we work with on this. There are three areas we're always looking at. There's foreign direct investment, which is when a company who is foreign owned kind of land in the UK and set up an operation here. It could be an research and development operation, a sales operation, a manufacturing operation, anything like that. And we're competing with other parts of the world to try and get them to land here. So really important investment. It's where a foreign company that's here already expands because they want to do more and they're being successful. And that's something we work closely with businesses to help them to identify expansion opportunities. And foreign direct investment, FDI, is also where a foreign company might invest into an existing UK company, taking a share of a minimum of 10%. In ownership of that company, and that's deemed to be foreign direct investment, and that includes mergers and acquisitions where obviously considerably more investment is taken. And that's really important because, as I said, we're competing with other parts of the world to attract that investment. It's investment that we wouldn't see in the UK without that international involvement. It's creation of jobs and safeguarding of jobs through that investment. And it's effectively ensuring additional money coming into the UK through potentially construction costs, through professional advisors, and creating more wealth going into the Treasury that can be spent elsewhere. So it's really important investment. The other two areas are growth capital, where we've got highly scalable, fast-growing businesses, generally speaking in high-tech areas, that are attracting significant investment from high wealth individuals or sovereign wealth funds or family offices. And as Hilary's pointed out, that kind of innovation economy that we have in Oxfordshire and across the Arc is really attracted to that kind of growth capital. And then the third area is the capital investment, large scale investment, normally £100 million plus of investment going into large scale capital projects, so housing schemes, employment sites, mixed development, big infrastructure projects. Think, for example, Birmingham Railway Station was developed a good few years ago using international investment, and that's long-term investment, long-term return, so it's called patient capital. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about international investment. Next slide, please, Susan. So how are we doing on the foreign direct investment, the FDI? And I'm talking from an Oxfordshire perspective here. You'll see that graph that shows a general uplift in FDI, foreign direct investment success year on year. And we're punching above our weight in terms of the size of our economy to the amount of success we have in foreign direct investment because of many of the things that Hilary talked about. And I'll talk about the kind of ingredients for securing international investment. We don't have numbers yet, or we don't have published numbers yet for the year we've just finished in 2021, but you can see there on this slide the published numbers for 2018, 19, 2019, 20, and we measure the number of projects, the value of all of those projects, and the number of jobs that are created or safeguarded as a result of that investment. And it's pretty crunchy and interesting and good numbers. We're going to see a drop in 2020, 21 because of the kind of global pandemic and the impact that's had on the global economy. But I can tell you now that the target we set or revised through for 2020, 21, we will exceed that. So the market is still strong. There's still a lot of interest in investment in a place like Oxfordshire and a place across the Arc. So that's good news. Next slide, please, Susan. The capital investment and growth capital is also, as I mentioned, an important area. And we've got a number of projects that sit on the UK's, what's called the UK's investment prospectus, where there are investable opportunities being promoted throughout the world for those large scale investors to come. Culham is looking for a total revamp of its site and development of housing and the living lab within all of that. Vista Heritage is an amazing project in the Sherwood district of Oxfordshire. And Vista Motion is a part of that, which is all about supporting and regenerating classic cars. It's growing a big cluster and it's got a large old airport site there that's looking for significant investment. And on that capital investment side as well, we've seen significant investment into the Harwell campus. Harwell is an awesome research and science campus in South Oxfordshire. Brookfield, who are a large real estate investor, have acquired a 50% stake in that joint venture. That's around £300 million, and that really is good news. And they've come with deep pockets in terms of their ability to invest in the site and bring new facilities onto the site. So that's really exciting. Next slide, please, Susan. And Hilary mentioned the strength of the universities across the Arc, and with Oxford University of Oxford here in Oxfordshire, we've got this explosion of the number of spin-outs coming out of the university. And you see from this graph, this illustration, that from about the 2013 mark, there's just suddenly been an explosion in the number of spin-outs coming from the university. And that's partly because of the fund that was set up by the university, Oxford Sciences Innovation, a £600 million fund with the likes of Google Ventures and Temasek and Fosun and a whole range of other big investors, international investors, coming in and creating that fund that enables these spin-outs for the university to access that early stage finance that helps them to grow much more quickly. And that growth of those companies provides follow-on investment opportunities that we're really promoting as foreign direct investment or growth capital, where it's a really fast-growing company that's looking for large-scale investment. And we've seen some tremendous success in that, and that's really a testament to the kind of ecosystem that exists in Oxfordshire and across the Arc in terms of supporting those spin-outs. Next slide, please. Amy mentioned the local industrial strategy when she introduced us, and when we think about what we need to attract international investment, one of the ingredients there is very much a vision and a plan for the place and the investment opportunities. And the local industrial strategy that was developed by Oxfordshire provides that vision. If you can move on to the next slide, Susan, you'll see that vision is very much to position Oxfordshire as one of the top 3 global innovation ecosystems by 2040, playing on the strengths we've got in science and technology and transformative technologies, because there's an opportunity to innovate here in Oxfordshire and across the Arc in a way that just doesn't really exist in many other places. And if you move on to the next slide, please, Susan, we'll see that as Hilary mentioned, that strength and emphasis, quite rightly, on innovation sits at the heart of the Oxford to Cambridge Arc economic prospectus as well. The vision for the Arc to be a global hub for innovation and home to exemplary models of green development. And that's really important. That innovation piece is written through our local industrial strategy, the economic prospectus, and that's one of the kind of pushes and offers, if you like, in terms of looking at trying to secure international investment. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Susan. Alongside the local industrial strategy, we've got our investment plan and our internationalization plan. And the investment plan is a series of investable propositions that we're pushing out to potential international investors and UK investors and indeed government, where they can be place-based or sector-specific or strategic in terms of the work we're doing on internationalization. That's very much strategic. So making that offer, clearly setting out what are the investable propositions, what are the investment opportunities, and pushing those out to the market to those people that I mentioned in the early part of this presentation, who are the investors, whether that's companies landing here or sovereign wealth funds or family offices or high wealth individuals, pension funds and real estate companies like Brookfield. We've mapped it all out, we've put it in one place, and the internationalization plan is the work we've done with the Department for International Trade and our partners on the ground to say that these are the building blocks, these are the bits of work we need to do to be able to secure ongoing and increased international investment that benefits, and this is really a critical bit, that benefits not just Oxfordshire and the Arc, but benefits UK PLC by creating jobs, by creating wealth, and by creating the research and development that results in manufacturing. And those manufacturing jobs and supply chain jobs don't necessarily have to be here in Oxfordshire or in the Arc. They can be other parts of the country. And an example of that is where we've seen Ipsen, which is a French drug development company who are based in Oxfordshire on Milton Park. they have this amazing pipeline of developing one new drug every year, which is some feat when you think about how much time and cost is involved in developing a new drug. And they've managed to meet that pipeline ambition for the last few years. What's important about that is all of the development for of that drug, all of that work around research and development takes place in Oxfordshire. And then the manufacturing of the drug takes place in Wrexham. So the importance of Oxfordshire and the ARC and that innovation piece to the rest of the country in terms of manufacturing, in terms of supply chain, is really, really important. Next slide, please, Susan. So a bit about the investment offer. What are we promoting? What are we saying to international investors about why they should come to a place like Oxfordshire? And the things we cover there are, they want to come to a place like Oxfordshire because of the sector strengths. A life sciences company or an energy tech company wants to come to a place like Oxfordshire because we've got sector strengths in that area. We've got clusters of businesses working in those fields in and around Oxford and Oxfordshire. We've got world-leading research facilities, and you think about if you all know Oxfordshire, you'll know that we've got two of the world's best science centres in Harwell and Culham. There is stuff, and I'm not an academic or a researcher in my own right, so I always use the word stuff when it comes too complex for me. But there's stuff, research facilities and stuff going on at Harwell and at Culham that you can't do anywhere else in the world because of the research capabilities, the research facilities, and the talent working there. And of course, we've got the world's best university in Oxford University on our patch, an amazing amount of research and development, particularly around medical sciences, but not exclusively around there, around energy, around AI, around a whole range of robotics, a whole range of other areas as well. So we've got the kind of building blocks, the ingredients for that kind of strong investment offer. Also access to talent, of course, incredibly talented people working in and around Oxfordshire and across the ARC, and that's really important to many of these companies that are looking to land here. How can they recruit the right people for the right jobs in their area of excellence? And the other element is that connectivity place. How do you access all of these different things easily, and how do you move around a place quite easily? And the point Hilary made as well around that wider connectivity around broadband infrastructure and those kind of infrastructures as well is really, really important. And we've got a pretty compelling offer in Oxfordshire and across the ARC that drives that inward investment, that international investment into Oxfordshire, into the UK. Next slide, please, Susan. We've got a number of propositions. I talked about sector strengths, a number of propositions and collateral, marketing collateral, promotional collateral that we've developed around some of our sectors: health and life sciences, future of mobility. Hilary mentioned race, remote applications in challenging places. That's all about robotics and connected autonomous vehicles. So those are the kind of strengths we've got in Oxfordshire and indeed across the ARC. Our response to COVID-19 and the vaccine development here in Oxford, in partnership with the university and produced by AstraZeneca, has really shone a bright light on the strength of the life sciences sector here in Oxfordshire, and we're really trying to utilise and exploit that spotlight, if you like, by really promoting hard to international investors why they should come to a place like Oxfordshire around those sector and subsector excellence on vaccine development, vaccine manufacturing, advanced therapeutics and diagnostics. Because again, there's stuff going on here in Oxfordshire that really isn't going on anywhere else to the scale and success in other parts of the world. So we've got an opportunity to really promote that and are promoting that. And interestingly, Harwell have seen, I was talking to the chief exec the other day, their busiest month on record for inquiries into space at Harwell, and Harwell's got a strong health tech cluster. It's being designated a life sciences opportunity zone by government. We're also working closely with government and Department for International Trade on identifying where we've got particular sector or subsector strengths that provide a really good international investment opportunity that we're not really exploiting yet. And there are two that we're involved in. The first is because of the work going on at Culham around research around fusion energy. we're promoting that as an investment opportunity because there's lots of investment in terms of the supply chain around fusion energy and those enabling technologies that make it happen. And again, that comes back to robotics that we've mentioned already, and cryogenics and other areas as well. And we are world leading in the development of and research into fusion energy. So there's a great opportunity to maximise investment and international investment into the work we're doing here in Oxfordshire specifically, and then working in partnership with SEMLEP and West Midlands and a range of other areas. We're looking at connected autonomous vehicles and the modelling and simulation, because there's stuff going on here in the UK that isn't going on anywhere else in the world, and an opportunity to really promote that investment. Next slide, please. Let's see. So that's the kind of, if you like, the kind of the hard stuff around the investment officer, but there's the much softer stuff as well that Hilary touched on, which is, people want to invest and come and live and work in a nice place where there's a significantly good cultural offer and heritage, where there's access to quality schools and education, where there's good proximity to national and international centres like London, Heathrow and Birmingham International. So that kind of softer stuff is really, really important, and we push hard on that in terms of why you would want to come and live and work in a place like Oxfordshire. And I think I'll give a couple of examples of that. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Sue. Intuitive Surgical is a US-owned company that makes these amazing robots that, as the name suggests, do surgery. So, so this is incredibly precise and dexterous surgery on lungs, on hearts, on other bits of us, where medical staff don't need to touch the patient. It's all being done by a robot, with the operator, the doctor or the consultant operating the robot right next to them. Now that's an incredible piece of kit, and the Intuitive wanted to set up a UK and Ireland operation, and we're looking at a number of places in the UK to set that up and invest a significant chunk of money from their US parent company. We brought them into Oxfordshire. We showed them 3 different sites, effectively a brownfield site, to say, look, here's somewhere where you could build your own facility if you wanted to, starting from scratch. We took them to an existing building to say, okay, here's something on a business park where you could set up. You could have a floor of this and set up there. And then the third place we took them to was the Schrödinger building on Oxford Science Park, which is pretty, at the time, was a pretty new build, was just being put up for a number of awards because it's a pretty outstanding building in terms of its look, but also its spec and everything else. And it's on a science park. It's got some of the stuff that Hilary intimated around. It's part of a community. There are opportunities to collaborate with like-minded businesses, to be in that kind of community setting where you're sitting alongside businesses, organisations that understand who you are, and opportunities to collaborate, to co-create, all that kind of stuff. They really liked that, as well as the place, the feel of the place, and that's where they decided to land. So it's that kind of, as well as the hard stuff around sector, clustering, research facilities, access to talent, it's that softer stuff as well around community and place. And actually the US executives that were coming over here liked the idea of living in a place like Oxford and Oxfordshire. Next slide, please. A similar story for Novo Nordisk, which is a Scandinavian diabetes company. They started on a very small research project with the University of Oxford that grew and grew and grew. Hilary mentioned that we'd developed a number of innovation centres in Oxfordshire. We put some significant funding through a government city deal into developing and building innovation centres, 4 innovation centres across Oxfordshire. One of them was at the Old Road campus, which is a University of Oxford, and right next to one of the Oxford University Hospital sites. And Novo Nordisk were really keen to be within that site, to be part of that site. So they took a floor of the innovation centre as it was being built, because they wanted to be within that community, right next to a lot of the research facilities, the academics, the researchers, the hospital, access to patients, all that kind of stuff. So there's that neat fit again around what we're developing and what international investors want. Next slide, please, Susan. And this is my final slide, I think. When I was putting this presentation together, I was trying to think, why is this important to you, the Young Planners Network, and how do I make it relevant to you? And I'm not a planner, but I know a little bit about the National Planning Policy Framework and local plans and master planning and the like. And as OXLEP, we're involved in and working alongside planning colleagues in the same way that Hilary mentioned SEMLEP's involvement, particularly for us developing the Oxfordshire 2050 plan, and as Hilary mentioned, the ARC spatial plan. And we need to be constantly thinking about what the future looks like and what a successful future looks like for all of us. And an example is our focus on living labs that are highlighted in the Oxfordshire Local Industrial Strategy and the Oxcam ARC Economic Prospectus, as I've illustrated on the slide. And that's about utilising and matching the innovation with communities to create those living labs. And it strikes me that if we're to make a success of the next 10, 20, 50 years, then we have to make the right decisions now. Right decision around housing, around employment, around connectivity, around transport, around environmental and energy use, around healthcare. The list goes on. And you, the planners, the policymakers, the influencers and leaders of both now and of tomorrow have a lot of responsibility and hope riding on you, I guess, in terms of how you influence policy, steer policy, challenge policy, shape and create the right policy, and most importantly, plan for a place, I guess, a building, a community, a town, a city, a world we can all be part of and proud of. And in my niche area around that investment piece that I've talked about, we need international investment to help get the right built environment, and we need the right built environment to attract international investment. It's a bit circular. The UK is and needs to continue to be the top attraction for international investment for us to continue to succeed, have a strong and growing economy and a resilient economy that bounces back quite quickly from the impact of something like COVID-19. And there are many components to attracting international investment that I've touched on, and those include regulatory, financial incentives like enterprise zones that we have in Oxfordshire and in other parts of the ARC, value for money and cost of consideration for an international investor. But I guess my statement to you is, don't for a minute underestimate the role that planning, place shaping, community and environment has to play in attracting international investment, and therefore your role in helping to secure that international investment is really, really important. So my final comment, which is very easy for me to say, but quite a challenge to you guys, I suppose, is to be bold and ambitious and innovative and visionary in the work you do, because it makes a big difference in my world and the world of many others as well. I'll stop there, and I think we've got some time for discussion and questions.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, and Hilary, you too. As Sebastian just mentioned, we've now got time for questions from you guys as the audience. There is a panel on the right-hand side, which if you look at the drop-down, you can submit a question there. Alternatively, if you put it into the chat, if you can't figure it out, that's okay. So please do send your questions through. I think to maybe kick this off, if I maybe turn to Amy, who I know you've had discussions with your colleagues. Do you have a question to put to either of our panelists?
I certainly do, and thank you for the challenge, Sebastian. I think as all young planners and those on the webinar today, that's certainly perhaps why we got into planning and into this environment in the first place. And it's always fantastic to be able to sort of have that passion bolstered by both what you and Hilary have presented today. So fascinating, and thank you very much. My question, and I'd perhaps like to direct it at Hilary first, is obviously with the local industrial strategies, it's the broad vision and the plan for the region, but in terms of the day-to-day decision making by local authorities, do you think there is perhaps a disconnect between that local industrial strategies and the decisions being made by local authorities? Oh, let's see if Hilary is.
Right, I think that's better. Yeah, I think yeah, really good question, and I think that's the role of local enterprise partnerships and greater collaboration across the ARC to try and ensure that those decisions that are being made now and locally really do fit in with the overall strategy, and I think that, as you could see from both, you know, what I said and what Sebastian said, there's a lot of similarity in terms of our approach to the sort of built environment that we need to create the sorts of communities that we all want to live in the future, and that businesses will want to invest in. So I think it's a challenge for planners. I think particularly with some of the housing developments, because often the whole process takes so long to move through the planning process. Certainly I feel that often local communities, seeing the sorts of homes that are being built today that were probably planned, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, and perhaps thinking, well, okay, we're hearing all about innovation, we're hearing about green energy, we're hearing about net zero, but actually, you know, what's being built now doesn't really look very different to what was being built 20 years ago. So I think that, I mean, Sebastian was absolutely right. It is in the hands of planners to really move things forwards and challenge. And what I would like to see across the ARC is some really ambitious thinking about what sorts of developments are we going to, you know, collectively demand are provided in the future. So we're not just going to let the same old decisions be made and the same old developments go ahead, and perhaps local communities may be not wanting developments in their area and perhaps not seeing this bigger vision. So I think we need to be ambitious, we need to be strong. And if any of you have looked at the environment principles that have been published quite recently by the ARC, I think you'll see there that there is a real ambition to do things differently in the future, and I hope that we can encourage you as young planners to take on that mantle and move us into that different way of thinking and planning for the future.
Can I just add something there? Can I just add, yeah, just to echo what Hilary said, yeah, it's really important, and that LEPS and local authorities are working very, very closely together. And as an example, we do that by, firstly, you know, the 6 local authority leaders sit on our board, so they are directors of the LEP. They are helping shape the work we do. And as I mentioned, you know, we're working really closely with the planning authority and those leading the development of the Oxfordshire 2050 plan to kind of help make sure that that Oxfordshire 2050 plan is very much working towards the ambitions that we've got in the local and industrial strategy. It would be an obvious crying shame if the two weren't massively closely aligned. And I guess the challenge for the politicians is to think about how do they ensure and enforce that relationship. Politicians in Westminster, in some respects, particularly when we're thinking about the future of the ARC and the governance structure of the ARC, which is something that will develop and we'll see more about over the coming months in terms of the growth body that the government's talking about.
Thank you. I'm mindful of time, but I'd like to just squeeze one more question in today's session if we can, and that is, perhaps, I'm not sure of our geographical reach today on our participants, but we're obviously very fortunate to live in a very prosperous region, and the very hard work that you both do obviously helps to secure that. But in terms of the levelling up agenda that we have across the UK, how can your success in the LEPS be shared with perhaps those in the north or in other areas that perhaps aren't as fortunate as ourselves? Is it left to the politicians?
Shall I have a go at that first, and then Hilary, you can come in? Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's absolutely the right question for now, because, you know, government has clearly stated that levelling up agenda is one of its key priorities. And I touched on one example where that, you know, the innovation that happens here, the research and development that happens here, benefits another part of the UK. And I think our responsibility as LEPS across the ARC and elsewhere is to have all of the examples that exist where that concentration of innovation, research and development, ideation, commercialization has massive benefits to other parts of the country. And I think it's our responsibility, and Hilary mentioned the space sector, which I didn't really talk much about, that incredible strength of the space sector and satellite and space data here in Oxfordshire provides fantastic opportunities for us to be partnering with other parts of the country in terms of how that data is used, in terms of the launch centres, the space launch centres that are being set up in Cornwall and Scotland. There are numerous examples. The work we're doing in fusion, how do we ensure that benefits other parts of the country? An interesting UK AEA who are based in Oxfordshire have gone out for a new site for their development of their spherical tokamak energy project, which won't be in Oxfordshire. It probably almost certainly be in the north somewhere. So there are numerous examples, and I think it's absolutely our responsibility to help government understand the importance of a place like Oxfordshire and the Arc in terms of levelling up.
I think that is absolutely right. Also, I think we should also add that there are pockets of deprivation across the Arc, and I know there are some examples in Oxfordshire where there are quite dramatic differences in life expectancy depending on where you live in the Arc. So we do want to ensure that we're levelling up for all our communities across the Arc, as well as doing, absolutely as Sebastian said, creating that commercialisation opportunity that can then deliver jobs in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. You said, Amy, that we're sort of a relatively well-off part of the country. Yes, but we could do an awful lot better, and I think that's what strategy shows. There's such potential, and just that bit more joining up, some of the fantastic research in Oxford, joining up with what's going on in Cambridge, taking up those testbed opportunities within the central bit of the Arc. We can deliver that, £4 return for every £1 invested, and then those opportunities can be spread around the country. And I think that's the sort of simple message that we're trying to get across.
Excellent.
Thank you both. I do understand if anybody on this call needs to pop out for lunch at all, but I have one I said the last would be the last question, but I'm actually going to ask one more, and this is actually from our president of the Thames Valley Young Planners, Annabelle. Her question is, as young planners, how can we engage with LEPS through our day-to-day roles? So perhaps something that you could give us advice on so we can think about in the coming days and weeks and months to come. And I'd like to ask Sebastian, please, then.
Thanks. Okay, I think there are a number of opportunities, and one that springs to mind, the governance arrangements of LEPS. We have board members. We frequently are looking for new board members on the basis that the rolling membership is limited and people can't stay forever. So I'd really encourage young planners to think about those positions, and I think you could offer a lot to board or subgroup. We have a whole range of subgroups as well around business support, around clean growth, around culture and heritage, and a whole range of different ones. Certainly from an OXLEP, I'm imagining Hilary the same as well. And again, we go out to market frequently to ask for volunteers to join those subgroups who will bring in a perspective, who will help us and challenge us in the way we're working, what we're doing. And I think I'd welcome and encourage engagement in those kind of those bits of governance of LEPS, if you like. And I guess the other thing to say is, between us, we do a whole large number of events where we're encouraging conversation, where we're encouraging challenge, we're encouraging feedback. And again, sign up for our newsletters, because you'll get details of those, and we'd encourage and welcome comment, challenge, insights from you guys. There's always a million more things we could do, and we could always do stuff better. And I guess we need, I'll flip it on its head a bit. We need you to engage with us as much as us to go out and try and engage with you. So please do.
Absolutely, absolutely agree with everything Sebastian said. If you go on to our websites, you'll see that there's lots of information about events and webinars. I mean, over the last year, with all of these opportunities for virtual webinars, we've been able to engage with a lot more people, a lot more groups and different age groups. So and there are some really interesting webinars coming up around the ARC. We've had one around the energy theme. There's going to be a future mobility themed webinar, so great opportunity for and we need to, we want to engage with young people. And also just finally on the ARC spatial framework, which I think we both touched on, government will be formally consulting on a vision for the ARC spatial framework probably from June. I know they've already gone out to look for young people to talk to, because again, everybody's very conscious that we're talking about the future up to 2050. We need to have some people that are really going to be benefiting from and engaging in that future. So do look out for that consultation on the ARC spatial framework.
Great answer.
Well, thank you both so much for your contributions today. It's really interesting to get different perspectives and actually think in a very holistic way about the wider area which we actually work in. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedules to really come and talk to us all. To everyone that's watching, thank you for turning up and sending in your questions. Do make sure to give us feedback on LinkedIn and Twitter. The RTPI Thames Valley Young Planners covers Oxfordshire, Berkshire and Buckinghamshire, including Milton Keynes, I always like to add. So if you're interested in coming along to any of our events, we run social events, CPD events, APP events, then do let us know. We have a mailing list on the RTPI website, and we also have an RTPI Thames Valley Young Planners LinkedIn group. So we're going to draw this session to a close now, but once again, thank you so much, everyone. And that's all. So thank you.
Thank you.